Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Retora Games' first developer game stream. Welcome. Today we'll be talking about Space Merchant and the upcoming updates coming later this year. My name is Party Pita. I'm your host. I'm the new community manager and marketing manager for Retora Games. I'm joined by Al. Uh,
Hey.
I'm joined. Yeah, I'm joined by Al. It's the art generalist. I'm joined by James, a UI artist, L, design,
Hello.
Vyacheslav, programmer, Tyler, design and project lead, and Cricket, the wonderful Cricket, as a counselor and advisor.
Hello.
On y'all.
Welcome,
What's
welcome,
up?
welcome. So, Retora Games, as some of you know, most of you know, is an indie game studio. We're known for primarily a couple major projects. Biggest one being Merchant RPG, and obviously we have a couple other titles: Space Merchant, which is the one we'll be talking about today, and Merchant Heroes. Uh, okay, take it away, Tyler.
Sure. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm pretty excited here to be streaming with y'all. So we're going to talk about Space Merchant today, talk about all sorts of fun stuff that we've been working on with it. Just a quick kind of rundown. We're going to do an announcement. I'm going to run through what the new features are going to be, talk about some of the bugs we've dealt with, things like that. And then we're going to do our discussion section where we'll talk about any questions you may have. If you haven't seen already, we solicited questions in Discord, Reddit, Twitter, etc. So we're going to go through some of those questions, answer them for you. If you have questions that were not addressed, you can post them in the chat on Twitch. I can't guarantee we'll get to them, but we are always on Discord as well as Reddit. So if you have a question that comes up during this and we don't get to it, feel free to ask in Discord or in Reddit, and myself or one of the other dev team members will get back to you. So where shall we begin, Peta?
Okay, sorry. So today on the docket we have basically we'll talk about the most recent Space Merchant update. Siri, shut up. Okay. Sorry.
Jesus, Siri.
Okay. Okay, so moving on. So today, basically, the entire purpose of the stream, we're going to be talking about Space Merchant and the upcoming update. I know some of you are here for the ARG and are a little hot on the heels with everything that's going on Merchant RPG right now. And other Retora. I promise you, there'll be a time and place. We're going to get to that. We're going to have a good time with that, you know? We're going to have some fun. I'm just as excited as you are, but today is about Space Merchant. So any and all questions regarding the ARG, if you could please hold them to the end. Thank you. So go ahead.
I was going to say, do you want me to go through the announcement now?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so if you haven't already seen the posts, the big new update is we're adding crews to Space Merchant and to the ships available. And essentially what a crew will do for you is it will allow you to further enhance the stats of the ship by assigning crew members to the various rooms or the various setups in the ships. Each crew member will then provide bonuses based on the type of position they have. So if you have a doctor, it can increase your medical stat. If you have a pilot, and increases the movement speed and the ability to dodge and otherwise do fun barrel rolls in space. All from this point forward, once the crew system comes out, all ships will have an available space for a captain. The idea of the captain, if anyone's ever seen pretty much any sci-fi story, be it Star Trek or Firefly or whatever it may be, there's always a captain of the ship. So the plan is that the captain will be kind of the primary role. Any ship can have them, but then as you add rooms to ships, you can get the more specialized roles, the doctor, the pilot, etc. And then those will allow you to further specialize ships and potentially make them be, the best at what they do. So that's the primary aspect of what crews do. The other big thing is how crews are generated. So we're actually procedurally generating all of the crew members. So we have the possibility to have tens of thousands of possible crew members. And we'll talk about it, and I'll show a little bit more on that later. But we've actually used some pretty cool machine learning style transfer systems to generate thousands of crew profile pictures. So every time you play the game, you will get a whole bunch of different possible crew to hire from. Some will just be readily available to hire. Some will be hireable through special events, storylines, quests that you do that will unlock additional crew to hire. These crew can be killed. There will be permadeath. You can lose a crew member if a ship goes boom. So it will be a system of gameplay where you have to consider every time you send a crew out on a mission is like, am I willing to risk this crew? Am I willing to lose my favorite captain, my favorite pilot? But of course, with great risk comes great reward. Crews can level up, they can gain experience, they can improve at their role, and they can get even better at what they do. So that's the basics of crews. That's going to be the major part of this next big update. We're also adding new storylines, we're adding new buildings, new items. There's just a general breadth of additional content that comes along with the crew. And that's something we've been working on for quite some time. So the crew system will come to the original Space Merchant Alpha players first, and we'll do a period of testing in that group before we go to beta. Hopefully, and this is something Vyacheslav and I have been working on, hopefully we won't have to do too many more save file resets. But for something like the crew, the primary reason we would want to do a reset is we want you to play the game from the start with crew to make sure that it balances well and that it doesn't become this situation where everything is easy and OP because you have a crew. So we're going to probably have to do another save reset on this, if only to test to make sure that it doesn't become too easy or too difficult because of the hireable crew members. But the good news is one of the other major changes we're making is that region change going from one region to another will now have unique content in each region. So I know a lot of you have had concerns about the fact that you move to another region and there's really no reason, right? There's nothing special there. You're just repeating content. In the future updates, each region will have its own unique storylines, its own items, its own materials. Each region will be unique. So the reason to move from one to the other is essentially to work your way through the game itself. So that's the big update. That's where Space Merchant's going. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, we are going to do a general discussion of this for the next 20, 30 minutes. And if we don't address any questions you have about the update, please message us in Discord or Reddit. So I'm going to real quickly, briefly just talk about some of the other projects just to get it out of the way. So if any questions come up, we'll have that dealt with. Merchant still being merchant, stuff is happening. Obviously, there's an ARG. Grok and Kastatu have been quite busy. I think a lot of people were worried Space Merchant was dead because there hadn't been an update in a while. It is clearly not. We are still working on it. Barius is working on Merchant Heroes still. I know he recently announced he's been working on a new side project. It doesn't mean he stopped Merchant Heroes. It is still getting updates. And Guildmasters is also still getting stuff. One Day is still working on it. I know he does also have a new project. That is the nature of game dev, but it doesn't mean any of our projects have been abandoned. So that's the basics. That's kind of the state of the union for Retora. As you all have heard and now seen, Party PETA. PETA is helping us with all sorts of marketing and communications.
Hello.
That's something that I personally have always put on the back burner. So having someone specifically dedicated to that is going to help us out with all things communications, all things, answering questions on Discord, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So yeah, that does it for my quick announcements and updates. Again, if you have any questions, just let us know in Discord, let us know on Reddit, and we'll try to address those as we go.
Okay, fantastic.
Do you want to take it away?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm the new CM. We'll get to that later, actually, with the community report towards the end of our dev stream here. But I am super looking forward to interacting and playing games with everyone from the community. So, guys, thank you so much. We're going to move on now to the discussion. This is going to be the Q&A part. If you have been following, please remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of our social media platforms, because we put out announcements, regular updates now for all things Retora across all of our games, and stuff like asking questions regarding the developer stream, updates on stuff like all of those forums and apps are all going to be cross-posted to those social media platforms. So if you want to ask your question, have it answered on the dev stream, all you got to do is just submit one on the Google Docs forum. We will have one actually set up for the next stream, and we'll have plenty of time for you to submit questions. Just again, remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram @Retora Games. Okay, let's start with our first group of questions. Uh, user asked, would it be possible to make buying and selling base resources, being iron, sodium, hydrogen, etc., into a way to make credits on its own? Like it's possible to have the quantity and the average price of the resource displayed. Like Tyler, I think you have an answer for this.
Yeah, sure thing. So the reason the market system is even in the game is because I'm a huge nerd for the idea of playing the stock market and doing it in an atmosphere like this where no real money is on the line. So absolutely, it should be possible, given enough time and development on this game, that that could be your primary source of play. I think for a lot of games that have any sort of like rolling with the stock market or playing the numbers, usually that is a side game, right? It is a side feature. The big challenge with that from a design perspective is if we make that too easy, then everyone will do that to then get enough credits to do everything else in the game without really playing it. But on the flip side, if it's too difficult, it just becomes random and it becomes more of a casino. It becomes pure, best guess. I'm sure I can't speak for everyone, but I certainly played a ton of Drug War on my TI-83 in high school when I was supposed to be doing algebra. So I hope to achieve that type of goal of like buying and selling, but I want to make sure that it's not so useful or not so effective that you can do it to essentially unlock everything in the game without playing the other elements of the game. So it's a fine balance there. One of the main goals that Vyacheslav and I are changing with that is to ensure that you actually have to unlock more abilities to use that stock system. So it doesn't just hand you all that information, doesn't hand you average sales data, it doesn't hand you those highs and lows, but you actually have to do other things in the game. You have to build new buildings. You have to have played the market a little bit to start getting recorded history. The idea that you can't just step right into it and start making millions of credits, but you have to do missions and do things related to it would be the end game, the goal for that particular system. Hope that answers your question.
Great, great. So basically, it's because you wanted to be a part of the game, right? Like you just decided that you were going to make the executive decision on a game that thousands of people play, right?
Yeah, the ego is strong
Yeah.
with this one.
Wow. Wow, would have never guessed. Okay. I'm just kidding. Next question. At why afterburners over large thrusters? This is a good question. Vyacheslav, you got an answer?
I have no idea. I think it just sounds cooler.
That's about right.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think at one
hey,
point it
right?
was supposed to do something different, and then we just
Yeah.
forgot.
yeah,
Uh,
probably.
okay, so what about this is a really good question. I like this question. Why should we move to other regions? Like, what's the point, Tyler?
Yeah, that is a great question. I might put a little bit of this on L because L's been working with the narrative recently. But the primary goal is to have different narratives and have the different alien races in each region, so it is a sense of discovery in each new region you go to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we're also wanting that, along with that sense of discovery, a sense of like progression through space as you're traveling on your little space merchant voyage. You're encountering more complex challenges, more rewarding missions, and different storylines that will kind of build on top of each other. That are they're individual units, right? They're modular, self-contained storylines, but also build together to form like the larger plot progression of Space Merchant as well, that you only get to experience by moving from region to region.
And I will take the fall for the fact that in the first iterations that was not yet implemented. We wanted to get the tech side of the moving from region to region done first. So Vyacheslav's role as programmer, like making sure that that system worked, so we could then go out to the various designers and narrative designers and say, "Hey, we have this system built out. here's a region. You can have a whole region to yourself. You get Act 2, you get Act 3. So the end game goal is that I can hire someone to essentially be just a narrative designer and writer to create a whole storyline, and then we just drop it into one of the regions, and have all the tech done for that. But that also sort of means that we had to release a version of it for testing purposes that didn't have storylines and special content built out for each region. But now that the tech side is done, now that the implementation is pretty much in there, it's really just a matter of us starting to put content in each region that is unique to that region, which is something Elle has been working on for the past couple of months.
Okay. So next question asks, would it be possible to see changes in the engineering tabs? Everything is listed alphabetically, but thrusters begin with their size. Why not thruster, small, medium, large, etc. to group them all together?
I
Vyacheslav, what do you
think I
think?
can answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, we do plan some improvements to engineering tabs and fabricator builder, but it will be, I think, maybe in the next update or after that. So I think we will improve how you can purchase or craft things. It will be a little bit easier since you can craft things right from the fabricator and buy things that you don't have yet. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that one. Uh, Next question asks, why different fuel instead of a universal fuel? I can't seem to find any difference between the prices. I can answer this one, because why not? Get some variety in your life.
Yeah, it definitely is something where we should have more gameplay variety for them, though.
Yeah. Which, maybe will work, could be something to work for towards the future. For now, though, variety. Uh, Next question is, what was the process for alienifying the portraits? If you haven't seen, again, cool things that we post on our social media platforms. If you go to Twitter, you go to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook right now, our artist Al has been doing a phenomenal job alienifying, all these different faces for the crew, and some of them are the dev team. They look insane. What is a process like that for, Al?
Well, first, I've collected a lot of references from media like Doctor Who and Star Trek for like the prosthetic sort of looks for low budget sci-fi stories. And then once I have a portrait, I kind of just look at what features are available. Like if someone's hair is covering their ears, I don't really do anything special to the ears. And then I just add colors or textures or extend and recede features as I see fit to just make something that meshes well with the original picture and it makes it spooky or cool like an alien person.
I'd be curious, Al, have you ever done like caricatures? Is this a similar process?
I haven't. I've just done portrait work and I do draw like a lot of fantasy stuff, so it's just kind of a combination of that.
I mean, either way, it looks really well done. So you clearly have had some form of practice, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
yeah. Next question is, what is the what is the art history for the UI in this game? It seems to change. James, you got an answer?
Yeah, it's been a process for sure. I think in the beginning it started out as like Prometheus was a big driving force as well as Star Trek, those UIs. And over time we've kind of tried to or at least I've tried to clean up the UI so it scales uniformly, and we're working towards making it a lot more cohesive and kind of bringing all those elements together to just make it so it's usable and clean for the user to be able to read and play the game without even thinking about the UI.
There's a very special challenge in UI in games like this in that it covers the full screen. A lot of developers who do menus and UI states, they can do it as an overlay over top the gameplay scene, right? You're running around in a first person shooter, you press a button and a menu shows up. That menu can fill the screen, but it doesn't need to fill the whole screen. It fills, the center third. Whereas with Space Merchant and Merchant, they are UI. Like the whole game is UI, which means every scene we make has to fill the full screen and use the full space in a meaningful way, which is an added challenge for James and I when it comes to designing and building out that UX UI layout.
That's like what's most important for the user. How are they going to use that information? What's readily available to them that if they're interested, they can dive into. It's just been a evolutionary process of kind of learning like what's best for people based off of their input.
Okay. This is a good next question. Like this is a good next question. Someone asked, can we get more options for combat? I'd like to see bigger battles and group fights. Future stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, we do have a plan to improve battles as well. That's what everything I can say for now.
You can't make any promises. You can't. No, nothing. What about a
Yeah.
date, dude? No, no
Oh,
date.
no, no, no.
No, no features. Nothing. Are you sure?
I think it's the next question, actually.
Okay, this next question is it's a good question. Well, it's a question that needs to be asked. Why do updates take so long to be released for Space Merchant? Oh, do you have
That's
an
a
answer for
great
that?
question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, I
Oh,
got this one.
oh, you got okay.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to some of the other team members as well. But there's something I feel like hasn't really been stated publicly to the community. While I am Retora Games or like the founder and sole owner, I also teach. I teach at the college level, which means in the fall and the spring, my availability is a little more limited. That doesn't affect any of the other team members. You know, everyone else generally should be able to work around that. But it does mean that our rate of work slows down in about September and then gets ramps back up in about April. And that's only because things can be limited by my availability because I need to approve things or I need to set up, you know, plans for the next bit of work. So for Space Merchant being essentially my baby and the project that, you know, I'm putting most of my focus into, it does mean that it slows down progress. It never stops, but it does slow down progress for those 6 to 8 months during the teaching period of the year. So for the follow-up question or the follow-up part of this, and this is something for Elle, is the process to make the narrative. If you can talk about how it take like the steps it takes to come up with one of those narratives and implementing it, I think gives a good sense of how long it can take to get new content added to Space Merchant.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the process of adding new narratives to the game, to me, was like almost deceptively time consuming. Like I kind of at the onset of this process was not necessarily aware of how much time and care it would take, but it really does take that level of thoughtfulness and attention to detail, because you not only have to think up the actual content that you want to add and have it planned out meticulously. But then the process of implementing it is like so many spreadsheets, and then testing as well. Basically, the process from like conception of the idea to actually executing it involves everything from like the brainstorming process to meticulously outlining everything in detail to actually implementing those things in the various organizational like data structures that we have for the game, and finally implementing that into the actual game in engine, and that can take several weeks. So, and that's just for one storyline. So implementing several of them, it's time consuming, for those of us who have, you know, other day jobs and stuff, or our students as well. Like it can take a little bit.
There's also the nature of the procedural generation in the game. Because so much of this game is procedurally generated, it becomes very difficult to test a lot of what we're describing. Something like a storyline, for instance, it's not that you run up to a certain NPC and talk to them to trigger the whole storyline. It's a random quest that occurs after X amount of quests. So Vichaslav has been very helpful in creating certain debug systems for us to quickly test storylines, but that doesn't actually give us a chance to test the feel of it, right? Does the storyline take too long to run through in regular play? Is something that requires us to regularly play the game to see, you know, oh, every 20 minutes I get a storyline, every hour I get a storyline. You can only really get a feel for that by actually playing for an hour, playing for multiple hours and getting a sense of it. So the proc gen nature and the kind of queuing nature of our narrative storylines means that while we can just, debug system press our way through a storyline, that doesn't give us the actual sense of like player feel of how long the storyline takes and is this too short, too fast, etc. Is something that takes thorough testing, which is also why we push out a lot of this content to the alpha and beta players early and often, because we want your feedback on, did you like this storyline? Did it take too long? Did you even recognize the storyline was there? All that information is stuff that we need to hear from you to understand the tweaks we need to make to the balance of especially the narrative stuff.
Yeah, this is like the reality of indie game development that people don't realize when they're like, I need an update or this thing is broken. It's insane to find the time to have a full-time gig and work on a passion project or your game project on the side.
And it's like not even including all of the like just through as Al was talking about, just the process, like all of the steps from brainstorming to implementation. There's like passes, there's revisions, there's a million things that go back and forth. It's like, no, I don't think this is a good idea, or this is not gonna work, and it goes back and forth on improvements. So yeah, it takes forever for things to, progress, but we try our best. We try our best. This next question is, what's with all the question marks in merchant? I keep seeing all these posts on Reddit. I can answer this one. Hush. Go check the Discord. Go check the Reddit. All of your questions will be answered, sweet child. I promise. You just gotta dig a little bit. Shh. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. Next question. Next question is, any idea when Space Merchant will be leaving alpha? It's very similar to the previous one, but Tyler, you have an answer?
Yeah, I can feel that. So in terms of alpha, beta on Google, we will always have a beta program on Google, same as Merchant. It's just the best way for us as a small indie team to test our content at scale. I can't hire 50 QA people, but I can ask the variety of players who are really into the game to play early and often and give feedback. And that is sort of, in a sense, a cost-saving measure, but it is also just, I need your help telling me what you like and don't like about the game. And that's just the nature of early access for indies. But to follow up, probably the other half of this question is, when are we going to be on iOS and Steam? The goal for me is after this crew update comes out and after we have it working where the regions actually have different content per region, the next step would be to bring it to iOS and Steam. Now that does actually push forward this process of alpha to beta because iOS does not have a very good beta system. There's this system called Test Flight, which is good for like picking a couple unique people and giving them builds. And we've put out links before to sign up for the beta. I think we're going to post one out again today. We will make sure that anyone who signed up there for iOS will get Test Flight when we do it. But the process from going from Test Flight to actually launching on iOS will more or less push our hand into being what I would call launched, to being 1.0. So after crew is out, after we do kind of a pass on cohesion and get the storyline stuff and content per region out, the next big move for Vyacheslav and I from a code standpoint will be to start building it to work on Steam, to work on iOS, to work, Android, it's already ready to go, but to get it ready for the full launch. The other thing which I'm very bad at and I put into the back burner as often as possible is how we will make money off of this game. For many of you, you've already given us the kind of thank you for the pizza money donation. It means a lot to us. Like even knowing that anyone's willing to spend a couple bucks on a game that they don't need to, just as a thanks for making it, that further validates that we should continue working on the game. So it does mean a lot receiving those funds. But eventually we have to get to the point where this game is actually making money and paying for the cost of its development. And that is something that the right way, so to speak, to do mobile games is to plan all that out in advance and have your whole monetization plan ready from day one. And I don't really like doing that personally. I'd rather focus purely on the game. And then once the game is done, and once I understand what the game really feels like, then look at it and say, where are the places that we can put, ask for a couple bucks, set up some in-app purchases. So that will be something before we go to 1.0. We will add the in-app purchases and potentially ads for iOS and Android. So that will be part of that process of moving to full launch. It feels gross doing it as an indie who just wants to make fun games for people, but I have to because I have to pay people and I don't have an endless bank account full of money. So at some point I have to be the adult and say, look, we have to find a way to make money off of this game. So after all the Cohesion Pass stuff, after the crew stuff, when we go to 1.0, that means we'll also be adding those monetization layers. So those will be the final steps. Then it goes to launch. Then it will continue to get updates as long as people keep playing it.
Cool, awesome. Uh, Next question is, and now we're getting to like the actual like crew update questions, so I'm pretty excited. Like these are stuff that I want to know. Any idea, or sorry, will the new crews affect the way that ships are run, like as a whole?
Yeah, it's possible. So we have a lot of nice to have feature plans for things crew can do for you. I've talked frequently to other team members about like creating a more idle system where crew members then fly the ships for you and do missions for you, and like whether someday we can get to that. And I want to be clear, that is not a feature that's in game. It's not even a feature we have on the plan right now, but it's been discussed, right? We have talked about all the cool ways we can use crew. We can have the sort of like personality conflicts and systems like that. Again, a great feature to have, but for this first implementation, it's not in. But once we go to 1.0, we will continue to update the game. That could be an update as like 1.3, right? A whole like crew interpersonal conflict system or an idle gameplay crew system. Like these are all things we can then add because we have the gameplay structure, we have those puzzle pieces available to connect together and say, okay, we've created a new gameplay system on top of crew where crew have, personality conflicts and things like that. One of L's tasks over the past couple of months with crew was to build out like personality profiles for them. So they may not be used, but the first iteration of crews going out all have personality stats. They all have your kind of like Myers-Briggs style personality layer. It will not be used in gameplay on first test, but it is there, which is great because that means if we do an update for that, we don't have to wipe the saves. We don't have to suddenly give the crew personalities. They all will have those personalities ready to go. We just need to tap into that in a later update to use them. So the answer to the question is right now, they are mostly going to be stat bonuses. But in the future, they can do so much more once they become a core integral part of that experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, then this ties into the next question. Like, are crews gonna require maintenance? Then, like, do you have to
Uh,
do stuff to upkeep them?
L, is this a question you want to tackle?
Sure, yeah. So I think it's as Tyler mentioned, we kind of have our list of features that we want to implement with regard to crews that might not necessarily be there on the first release of this update. But one of the features that we're looking at does involve basically tracking the morale of your crew, right? Like if you were actually a captain on your own spaceship and you have all of your crew members and you're like, okay, we're going to go do all these dangerous missions with fighting and stealing stuff, and then you don't like pay them anything or don't treat them well, they're not going to like you very much. And so we wanted to kind of represent that in gameplay a little bit by having a morale system that tracks like how well are you treating your crew, are you paying them, are you settling disputes between the different personalities of the crew well, which can possibly have negative or positive repercussions for the player.
That's awesome. What's okay? So you kind of already answered this, right? But like maybe we can get a more in-depth answer for this one then. Can crew members die? Now you said that there is permadeath, but how is that like? Is it similar to merchant as to like death? Like will they have like stats? Like there's Like, do you want to just briefly touch that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so this is kind of a part of the 1.0 plan, and actually this will eventually have potential to tie into the monetization in the future. Crew members can die when ships are destroyed. Crew members can die potentially in events as a negative repercussion for certain of the choose your own adventure style event systems. When they die, our plan is one of the buildings that you can create is essentially like a cloning vat, like a backup system. And any crew members that have a backup, you can bring them back from that backup point. So if you backed up a crew member right before sending them on a quest and they die, you can pretty much, you don't lose anything. However, if it's a crew member you've never made a clone of, never made a you know gooey gross vat clone, then there's no bringing that crew member back. So what this really comes down to is you will have limited space for the amount of backups you can make. You all have limited building space available. So unless you fill your space station with cloning vats, and it's just cloning vats as far as the eye can see, there will be potential for losing certain crew members. So this is our way of saying, like, if there's a crew member you really like, they're one of your favorites, they have the best stats, you just like their profile picture and their background story, then you can keep a backup of them and constantly run that backup. But then if you have a bunch of crew members that, whatever, like they haven't really done much for me yet, then you just don't make backups for them. And if they die, they die. And you, sorry, it's the tough life of Space Merchant. So that's kind of the answer to the permadeath is yes, you can lose crew. It can be permanent, but there will be a gameplay system to prevent that. And then from the monetization, the plan was just to have it be more backup space available if you want to chip in a couple bucks towards the game.
Okay. So Space Merchant giveth and Space Merchant taketh away, huh? Okay.
Indeed.
so so then this is an interesting question. What do the crew members actually do? And I'm gonna tie in another question that someone submitted that is similar. So what do they do, and do you have to use them in the ships now?
You do not.
Oh,
So
okay.
so the crew slots are essentially optional slots to fill, the same as like the ship equipment. Without them, ships will not have nearly as good of stats. They will always be a benefit versus not having them. In fact, even in the tutorial, there's kind of a reference to this that we couldn't afford human crews. It's mentioned in the tutorials. Without a human, it is a fly by wire. The ship goes to place, does thing, comes back. It has no decision making process. It cannot act on the fly, so to speak. It is a remote control ship. Having people in it gives it a little bit of that sense of autonomy, a little extra kind of added intelligence of the people being there, and it improves the stats related to those crew. So having crew will always make for better ships, but you will not start with the best crew in the game. Obviously, just like any other system of progression, the crew that you begin with will, be kind of your starter pack crew, and you will work your way through better crew. And actually, on that note, one of the things Elle has been doing is going through our thousands and thousands of machine learning based images that we've created for our crew members and kind of setting aside the coolest ones to be special, unique crew. And if you want to talk a little bit about that process, Elle, and the process of like setting up the layers of coolness factor for the crew.
Sure, yeah. I think when we basically and this ties into the crew death a little bit as well. When we set up the sort of systems we wanted to have in place for crew, we wanted the player to be able to have like customize fully like what sort of crew they have on their ship and kind of get attached to specific maybe types of crew members to have. So as Tyler talked about a little bit already, all of our crew member options are going to have different personality kind of profiles that they have, which in future updates will affect how they interact with each other. All of them have obviously their roles that they fulfill, like being a captain or a scientist or something on your ship, which at its like most basic level gives you those stat boosts, right, that make the game easier to play. But they also have their own sets of stats and their own like proficiencies and tendencies that make them better suited for particular roles over others. And some crew members are going to be empirically better than other crew members, or just more suited for the role that you need, in that can they can have, higher intelligence, for example, that makes them better suited to serving a specific role on your ship, which will in turn boost that ship's stats the way that you want it to be boosted. And also, there's kind of been an idea floating around of being able to interact with your crew in a way that allows you to train them and make them better at doing particular roles that you need them to accomplish. Um, so basically, we have a whole lot of layers of intricacy when it comes to the way crew will be implemented. They're very complex little dudes. They're like they've become alive to me a little, in a way, in that there's a lot that goes into making them feel complex and real and fun to play with, as opposed to just being like, now you have a scientist, and so your ship is better at research. Like, it goes beyond that in terms of layers of complexity, which I think is fun.
Okay, so I wasn't gonna mention this, but so someone just asked, can we romance our crew members, please, Retora? I'm gonna answer you right now. Yes, we're gonna get Mass Effect levels of romance options for the crew members now.
That is incorrect.
No, no, between all the different alien species, we're gonna make it happen. I'll work OT. I promise. No, I'm kidding. I can't promise that. Can you imagine though? Um, okay, and with that, I think that kind of brings our Q&A session to an end. So again, guys, thank you so much for everyone submitting their questions on Reddit, through the forums. It's very, very awesome. We'd love to be able to have this communication discussion with you guys. It's fantastic. I hope we had your questions answered. If we didn't, again, the next stream for Space Merchant, we will be more than willing to get those questions answered. So again, if you follow us, or if you're just a member of the Discord, if you're just following along on one of the social media platforms, anytime something like this is going to happen, anytime you have the chance to have your question asked and answered directly from us, it'll be posted. So just keep an eye on those. Okay, so moving on, we're gonna move on from the discussion. We're gonna go to the specific technical updates, like bugs. This is Vyacheslav. This is all you. We're just gonna talk really quick about regions, updates, storylines, stuff like that. Vyacheslav, you just want to give like a quick rundown?
Yeah, and first of all, I would like to thank our community that has sent our bugs and bug reports in Discord, and using our in-game tool to send reports, because it is really helpful. And we are fixing a lot of bugs in the next update. So that's it.
Okay, cool, nice, sweet.
Are there
Quick,
any
short,
are
to
there
the
any
point.
particular bugs that you want to talk about, Vyacheslav?
Debt collection update. I know that we received that a lot about this mission. So yeah, I fixed it already. And another ones are related to UI and some animation improvements, and of course new regions and ships and research and everything.
Okay. So now moving on, we're gonna do the quick community report. So this is just real quick for me. I think so. I'm the new community manager for Retora Games. Hi everyone, I'm Peter. I have a bit of a history in community management, just like helping out and volunteering for stuff. So I'm really, really looking forward to working with all of you and being your kind of like point of contact. My entire purpose is to be a voice and an active voice that is communicating between the community and the team. So it's not like, okay, they've given up, but like there's been nothing, we don't know if anything's happening. I'm gonna be your point of contact. So if you have any questions, if you are concerned at any point, if you need some help, again, Reddit, Discord, social media platforms, just at me, and I will do my best to help you. We're gonna have new activity around new content coming out, which is super exciting. Not just Space Merchant as well. I can't say anything more than that, but not just Space Merchant. In the future, we will be doing some further steps to building the community, kind of like building solidarity, building a more core community that like interacts with each other every single day. So we'll be, because of that, we'll be looking eventually for filling new moderator positions for the Discord staff, Reddit, Steam, all that good stuff. Again, those will come at a later date, and of course, again, if you're interested, I'll reach out to you, and you can reach out to me. Don't you worry about it. Next is also, so we'll be recruiting again more for the Space Merchant Cruise beta testing. If you want to go to the link in chat, if you want to go to the link that's going to be posted in chat, it'll link to the Space Merchant beta cruise signups. So please use that form. And yeah, that's basically it for the community report. I'm super, super excited to be working and communicating with all of you wonderful people, and I'm looking forward to where things go from here. And lastly, I promised that we would do this. So lastly, we're going to briefly discuss or promo the ARG that is currently happening in for Retora. So Tyler,
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no such thing as an ARG.
there is no ARG.
There is no spoon.
Oh. Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. There is no ARG. Winky
There is
face.
no ARG. This is not a cult.
This Right. Okay. So, again, anything, if you have any questions, if you're one of the special people that know or have an inkling, Discord, Reddit, okay?
Yeah, I would strongly suggest looking at Discord or Reddit if you have any idea what we're talking about, or if you have no idea what we're talking about. There's plenty of information there for
One or the
either
other.
situation. What I will say is that things are coming close to a close, without giving any special details. But if you keep an eye out, look at what's going on in all of our various social media channels and in game, you should be able to get a sense of what's going down.
Okay. All right. So, again, please check out the Reddit Discord. So this is going to bring our first dev stream to a close. I think it was a massive success. Next stream will not actually be for Space Merchant. It'll be for regular Merchant. Again, date and time of that is a TBD. We will have a forum for submitting any questions similar to this one that we will put up. Again, to keep in touch and keep track of all of those, our socials at Retora Games, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Please give them a follow. Again, check the Reddit regular. The Reddit also will post updates, community posted updates, and then of course the Discord. Again, good luck with the hunting on the thing that doesn't exist, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being our loyal fan base. We really appreciate you. We would not be able to do this without you beautiful people. Guys, thank you so much. And then again, Al, El, Vyacheslav, Cricket, James, and Tyler, thank you for joining me today and answering everyone's questions. You guys have been a blast. And we'll see all beautiful people next time for the next stream.
Thanks
Bye.
for having me.
See you guys.
It's
Bye.
awesome.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care, guys, and good luck.